Here we go. All right, welcome everyone. I figured out yesterday that actually it shouldn't be me doing this presentation because for all of the two parts in here that I've got, there's people in the audience who know a lot more than I do, but I'll point to you guys. I'm here as the guy that also for the last 2 years in the context of Sophie, in the context of Eclipse here, has occasionally been pointing out, what else is happening around us in the wider SDV automotive space, and I'm going to do that again today. So what happened since the last time I used that background for a slide? What we have, two of the things that we have right now is the Alliance and the Federation. So there's these two entities, the animations don't work. There's these two entities that kind of came in last 1 or 2 years, and we as the little SDV working group kind of sitting in the middle looking at these guys and saying, well, what are you actually doing? We've been here before. I'll speak about each of those a little bit as far as my understanding goes. Again, there's people for both parts who know more than I do. So essentially, what happened here? And this is a completely false tale, but I'll still use it to kind of give you a rough idea about what these two groups do. So essentially, Federation, like the FEDERATE EU project, and there's a larger SDV of the future kind of framework for that on EU level, and there's a bunch of sub-projects that are being branched out from that. I'll have a slide on that later. But essentially, that is a group of interested parties in that EU context who recent couple of years started to look into SDV and said, okay, this looks useful. This looks like something we need to kind of empower our industries and our countries to do. Let's start something. Let's do some European SDV style ecosystem and kind of help companies to do something useful here. And at that point, all of these guys, including the Eclipse Foundation, but there's a lot more out there, kind of looked at that and said, yeah, okay, that's a nice idea, but actually, we have been working on that stuff for years now, and we are trying to build communities, and we are already fragmenting ourselves to hell. So what's going on here? And at that point, the EU said correctly, yeah, that's nice, but who are you actually? What are you doing? And why are there so many of you? And that this question can lead you logically to what the SDV Alliance is trying to do. I'll get to that in a minute. As I said, this is completely bollocks. It didn't happen that way, but that's one way to kind of look at what the FEDERATE is trying to do versus what the Alliance is trying to do versus what all of the other kind of communities and entities are doing already. So, the SDV Alliance is an interest group, something like an interest group. It's not a formal entity as such in my understanding, but it's a combination of the AUTOSAR, the SDV, the SOFI and the COVISA communities or organizations with the joint goal and aim of trying to figure out what the heck is everybody else doing. How does what everybody is doing kind of fit into what everybody else is doing, and how can we talk about what all we are doing, so that other people actually understand how this all fits together. Short version, my words, but this is what the Alliance is trying to do. The alignment and the figuring out of all of these pieces, again, my understanding, that is ongoing right now. I'm not aware of any final complete pictures and diagrams and etc. So what I put on this slide is another thing that didn't really happen that way, but that's my take on these 4 organizations right now, and on the big picture, what the joint thing might look like, what everybody is contributing to something like the SDV tech stack. So I don't know who is following which group closely or at all, but let's just say very high level, what the COVISA guys, one of the things the COVISA guys have been doing for years now, and one of their quite successful little projects and communities is built around defining vehicle data semantics, their VSS project. They do have something else going on complementing that. little bit pushed by GM recently, the EU services project, which is vehicle service interaction semantics, turn on the HVAC, for example. So that is a contribution that is kind of working well in the Covisa context. That is something that makes sense and that is needed to actually scale applications into, a software space. So that is a very natural contribution to the complete picture from the Covisa end. What we are doing in SDV, you heard a couple of things last couple of days, but on that high level, we are implementing, service measures. We build orchestration blueprints and have pieces that enable those. We have a bunch of other things around that. So we build software components and try to build a somewhat coherent ecosystem around them that actually and obviously already today are using the Covisa definitions, for example, like the Eclipse Cuxa data broker is one of the pieces using Covisa VSS to make vehicle data, accessible in a unified semantic way. So that's a natural combination between those two that's already been going on for many years. The AUTOSAR guys, I'm happy, and I think overall everybody really is happy that they want to be part of this too. Right now there's a bunch of complicated discussions happening around enabling things, collaboration on code level, on spec level, while still, being true to the AUTOSAR IP, etc., copyright regulations, so that's in the works, but essentially, again, taking a step back on that high level. AUTOSAR is a huge relevant part of how the mechatronic side of a car works, right? That's like, embedded controllers often run AUTOSAR systems, and high compute entities, probably there's a likelihood that they will run AUTOSAR adaptive, so whatever the details are, we can say for the purpose of this level of detail, AUTOSAR is a huge part of the embedded of the mechatronic space. So by enabling us in that alliance to connect to that space, and if it's only just for building my turn on the HVAC application, right? And that goes through the cloud, that goes into the car, that goes down to the HVAC controller that's speaking AUTOSAR, and when we can connect to that using some IP, for example, that would be a huge first step to connecting AUTOSAR to this let's say larger world around it. So that could be the first stage, the first step contribution of AUTOSAR toward that whole picture. There's a lot more in the cards, I'm guessing. SOFI is an interesting one, and not least because for the last couple of sessions we didn't have somebody from SOFI in our meetings, but essentially, let's say if SOFI is about running cloud-native style workloads on ARM computers in the cloud / in vehicle, well then obviously SOFI is well placed to pick up the pieces that the other three have been putting together, especially the higher layers, and make those run on ARM stuff, right? So that's kind of the little supply chain that we can have going for the alliance. I do expect, I don't know dates, Michael will know them. Michael's back there. If you need to know or want to know more about the alliance, Michael is the person in the room. I do expect that in Q2 we will get a lot more formalized and professional view of what I just tried to tell you. Let's see what comes out of that. That takes us to the other big part, the federation, FEDERATE, the EU project. And again, there's people, AVL colleagues in the room over there, who know a lot more about what's happening here than I do. But I did mention the SDV of the future endeavor of the EU already. So that's like the headline for all of this. And this is essentially spinning off, as time goes by, various sub-projects and sub-work streams. And FEDERATE is useful for my presentation because Alliance Federations works well, but FEDERATE is the planning, the funnel, the organization project for one of these work streams that happen in the SDV OF endeavor overall. So there is names, abbreviations for the various sub-projects. You can read them on the slide. FEDERATE is collecting inputs, organizing, let's say, work on that level and trying to gain some alignment between the individual partners for the first one of these projects. HAL4SDV, I think it's called, but I'm not quite sure because there's so many of these names flying around. Later down the line, and next year, I think starting will be the next work stream, which is called that. And again, there's more, the EU doesn't fool around this. This is a multi-year effort. This is what FEDERATE, this organization project, is aiming to do. I mentioned this already. It's trying to foster help along the collaboration between stakeholders in general. One part of that, it's part of like the fourth bullet point down here, for example. Luckily, everybody involved was it's open and happy to learn about all of the other communities already out there in the world doing things, calling themselves SDV something. Big part of FEDERATE is, and of the other downstream projects, is utilizing and working with those existing communities. And that means that a bunch of the work that we do in Eclipse, for example, in this working group will also be, let's say, part of what FEDERATE does, / will contain artifacts, results of work that has been funded and pushed and enabled by FEDERATE. So essentially you can kind of consider this to be an alliance between communities like the 4 we saw earlier, doing work organized by, informed by, regarding use cases and goals, by something like FEDERATE and the supporting projects. The FEDERATE guys have been quite productive and busy. They created slides, web pages, forums, newsletters, etc. I'll show you the pointers in a minute. What I tried to talk about just now, that's one of the views, like one of the slides where the words are on. What is FEDERATE doing? What are the expected outcomes, goals, artifacts, and how does that fit into the larger European programs, etc. So FEDERATE could be, in short, considered to be like a collection forum, dissemination and alignment forum for work that, at the end of the day, we do, for example, in the SDV working group plus others. The FEDERATE pointers that I brought, again, the guys have created a very nice web page where you will find the slides and all the details and all the information and all the events and dates and so on. Have a look. You can read the rest for yourself. There's newsletters you can register for, there's events happening that you can participate in, and you can get the pointers to organizations that are part of this, etc., as usual. All right, and actually I was aiming for 15 minutes, took 2 more, but that means we do have a bit of time either for questions, probably going to the people who actually know what they're talking about directly, and or we will be quicker overall. Thank you.
So I was wondering, it doesn't look like FEDERATE is about creating software.
FEDERATE is about creating the frame conditions so that others can create software, ideally without too much replication and in a way that makes some work fundable by that EU initiative. That's my take. So FEDERATE itself, my understanding, will not give money to developers directly, but it's the forum for people like our companies to align with, to put things in, maybe to get some more formal buy-in from stakeholders, management level, etc.
Any other questions? Follow up, Kai?
No, better not.
Okay, come on.
It's less a question, but maybe I can, from FEDERATE point of view, FEDERATE is a coordination support action, so we are trying to support what Eclipse started, what Covesa is doing, and so on, and to extend it also a little so that we really get it into the vehicles. Because Eclipse, for example, Eclipse SDV is very much a software community, which is really important because that's missing in the automotive industry, and it's very important. Nevertheless, we have also to consider that we get it finally into vehicles and ensure that it's providing additional value to consumers who purchase the cars. Therefore, we also we try to bring together Eclipse SDV, Covase, and so on, with, for example, CCAM. That's an EU initiative where most of the automotive, or all of the automotive suppliers are in, and trying to think about what do we have to do large-scale pilots so that we really can prove that it's working together. So that's the one thing which we're trying to add. FEDERATE itself is not really important. I guess what's important is this software-defined vehicle of the future, where Eclipse SDV is a partner in, because we say whatever is done in Eclipse doesn't make sense to duplicate. We have to ensure that others work together, and here I'm in close contact with Michael from the Alliance, that we see that also FEDERATE will support this Alliance to help from a technical level, bring people together, do workshops, conferences, make presentations, and so on. So the other thing is why, I guess, automotive industry started this software-defined vehicle of the future is that to create such a software stack and all the components costs money. At the moment, Eclipse SDV, it's open source, and that's the intention also of the software-defined vehicle of the future. But we would like to bring in some additional funding so that we can speed up and accelerate this, because we are in competition with US, with China, with other areas, and speed is one of the most important areas, and that's what FEDERATE would like to add, and I guess together it's all one initiative, whether it's Eclipse, whether it's Covase, whether it's SOFI, whether it's HAL4SDV, the project, or Shift to SDV, or in CCAM project and so on. I guess it's a big networking requirement, and that's what we from FEDERATE try to put together, and we sit together with Michael Plage and with very often together to see what we can do to ensure that we are really complementing each other, and that we're quick and successful in this global competition which is out there.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any more follow-up questions, Sarah? You can clarify about FEDERATE.
Yeah, so I also don't have a question. So that was really a good presentation. And if you want to ask the question, what is our role? What is the Eclipse Foundation role within FEDERATE? So our main role is to represent our community, obviously. So we want to represent the community that we have. We want to represent our projects so that they are known and available to everyone, so that people know that they are there. So that's our main role over there. And in fact, we are participating in the dissemination part, and FEDERATE is going to partner with us, so thanks for that, in the organization of the Open Code for Automotive, which I mentioned at the beginning of the event. So collaboration is very close, and we're extremely thrilled of being part of it.
All right.
Any other questions to Daniel? No?
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.